Before we crack on with the video, I just wanted to let you know that IDRIVEACLASSIC is sponsored by Adrian Flux. I've also got all my cars insured with them, and I also have Flux Rescue, because guess what? All my cars do break down, even if I pretend they don't. If you haven't got your car insured yet, or you're looking for a new renewal quote, click the link below and get in touch with the Adrian Flux team. Hi guys, it's Jeff from IDRIVEACLASSIC, and today I'm back on this very windy, blustery day in West Yorkshire, showing you this incredible Mark III Cavalier. It's a one-owner car. It has a really interesting story which Kev is going to tell you about, and if you remember me talking on Twitter about a car that we stopped from going off to be a scrap car or used for parts, ta-da! This is the car, and Kev has taken it on. He'll tell you more as we go through the video. Now I hope that you can forgive her a few little bits and pieces today and her failure to start, because she's only been with Kev a few days and back on the road since her MOT. It's a really interesting car and I think it deserves classic status, and I'm going to tell you why in this video, take you for a drive and show you around it. So let's crack on, and first of all I'll show you around the car. The Mark III Cavalier, when it came to market, was headed up in the sales brochure with the leading strapline. One of Britain's favourite cars is now better than ever. And you know what? It was an absolute favourite because it was not only liked by fleet car drivers and the people that were buying the fleet cars, it was also liked by people that were buying into the medium-sized family car market and various other drivers that just wanted something that was decent and they knew was going to work. And with all of that, it was actually one of the best sellers of the 1990s. Now, the 1993 range didn't rest on its laurels, and it extended the qualities inside and out. And the car sported the new styling in that rounded shape, which, looking back, is really a symbol of the 1990s and was a fashion of the time. It had new features, new power choices, and heaps of reasons for people to keep buying into the Cavalier. Now, first off the bat was the economy pull for the long distance driver or the fleet driver, because after all, that was a big part of the market of the people that were buying it. And of course, it done really well because at the time of the 1993 launch, it had won Fleet Car of the Year an incredible 7 times. And the car was said to have a better minimum service routine and lower running costs than competitors, although it doesn't tell you how that is in the brochure, so we're just going to have to take Vauxhall's word for it. And in addition to economy, the space inside was said to have enough room to carry 5 adults comfortably. And also, due to the popularity of the car on the used car sales market, the resale and reliability of the car were also touted as reasons to buy into the Mark III, because if you know you're not going to lose too much money through depreciation, why wouldn't you buy one of these? Now, the range for 1993 was thoroughly well thought out, and not only were the new cloth trims and interior a bit of a new addition, but most importantly, safety had been really thought about. And the cars were fitted with Vauxhall's body-lock front seat restraint system and dual-side impact bars, which were made out of heavy-duty steel and built into all 4 side doors. And it also had the deadlock central locking system throughout the entire range. It wasn't just saved for the people that spent a bit more money. And in fact, you got plenty of standard on these, including electric headlamp levelling, security-coded radio for anti-theft purposes, heated rear window with auto cut-off, height adjustable seat belts, really a lot of finer details which were missed off the competitor cars and made it a really usable, attractive prospect. And the new range also did away with the old naming convention and introduced exciting new models. You now had the entry Envoy 1.6, the LS, the GLS, the CD and the Diplomat. And then, if you were a little bit more sporty, you could go for things like the 2-litre 4x4, the 2-litre SRI, or the 16-valve turbo 4x4 models. There was a lot to choose from. And in fact, for 1993, the Cavalier range had an impressive 8 engine choices, adding 2 to the lineup, and the choices ranged from the 1.6 through to that 2-litre 16-valve turbo and 2.5 24-valve Ecotec V6. So it was quite a choice. Now, the new 16-valve engine in the SRI was a new low-noise version of the existing engine with no lost performance, so really a real win for Vauxhall all the way round. All the engines ran on either unleaded fuel or diesel, with 1993 being the year that the EEC, as it was known at the time, setting new legislation for car emissions, and it made catalytic converters essential by October 1993. So really it was kind of falling in line with where it needed to be. In addition to the new range lineup, every car was fitted with power-assisted steering, which, as you'll see when we go driving, is just perfect for a smooth, pleasurable drive. And Vauxhall proudly declared it a car which was unmatched in its class. And as we discover the car today, I'm sure you're going to agree they're not wrong. Now, that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of that. There's plenty more information online, including on the Mark III owners group, which is online. But before we do all of that and we see the car in more detail, let's meet my friend Kev, who is a very regular face on the channel.
Hi, my name's Kevin Hurst, and most people know my dulcet tones from IDRIVEACLASSIC video. I think I'm on their Christmas card list now. This is my 1993 Vauxhall Cavalier. Steph gave me a call about this car. The chap has had it from brand new and absolutely pampered it, loved it, cherished it, really gone to town with it. There is a service history of the car that's that thick. He's got little notebooks of everything that's been done on the car. The guy loved it. I don't know why he wanted to get rid of it, but he decided it was time to part company with it. I think he'd had some welding done last year and he was a bit frightened of the body and stuff, which incidentally is very good. I had these cars back in the day. They're a brilliant car to drive, good economy, 8-valve engine, which is nice and good. Better, in my opinion, than the Mondeo of the time, because they were both Mondeo and these were head-to-head. These were a better car in my opinion, which obviously shoot me down. So that's it. I was going to do a bit of filming with it, which, because the 90s cars have just disappeared off the face of the earth, there's none around anymore, so it'd be good to that. And I was going to use it as a daily transport to replace the mum wagon that Steph borrows occasionally, because unfortunately the mum wagon is getting to the end of its useful life. But I've had a change of heart, because I believe a car in this condition needs preserving and looking after by somebody, and to be honest, I'm not in a position to do that. If I use it as a daily driver, it'll be destroyed. So it's far too good. It's not a museum piece. You could just jump in this and set off wherever, because they were well chosen cars, and that's it. So I've decided to part company with it. But it's lovely. I don't know why the guy didn't pursue it, but he wanted to. He just made his mind up. He wanted another car, and that was it. So he was going to scrap it, which is absolutely criminal. But anyway, it's got a new lease of life now. It's up and running, and it's available.
Now, when I got offered this car by Kev, of course, you know, it was never top of the range. It's probably not the best example out there, but it had such a nice story that I thought, we're going to put it on the channel and I'll show you the inside. So when we look through, you immediately know it's not top spec because these seats aren't leather, but it's got everything you need from a very usable retro runabout. Now, first of all, you've got this pocket above the glove box. Quite like that, because I think there's never enough space in cars to just put stuff away. And below that, you've got your glove box. Now, what I love about this is it has a light inside. How many times have you been in an older car and you're fumbling around, you're trying to find something in the dark? That light's amazing. And I guess one of the things that I do like about this era of cars, and I'm very traditional, I do like the older stuff, and with all, like, you know, the wooden dashes and all the old dials and stuff, but 90s stuff does have a certain charm about it, because it's advanced enough that you've got enough mod cons to have an enjoyable drive, and it's retro enough to make you feel like you're having a break from the norm. And also it's quite simple as well. So coming in the centre of this, we've got at the top your heater vents. Let me tell you, if you're looking to buy one of these, oh my gosh, is the heater good. It is so cold today, and we have been very, very toasty. And below that, you've got a very simple layout. Now, I really like this one because it's as it would have left the factory. It's not been mucked about with, hasn't had a disgusting CD player put in it. It's as Vauxhall intended. So you've got an analog clock there, you've got all your various gubbins there to adjust the heater. I feel like they're really overcomplicated. I don't think it needs to be that complicated. And then coming down into there, you've got your cassette player as well. Now below that, you've got yet another cubby hole just to put all your bits and pieces. And below that, you've got this flip screen and you've got your ashtray and your cigar lighter. Now the lovely thing about this is it hasn't been used. So it's all very nice. It hasn't been smoked in, I don't think, because you can't smell anything. It just smells quite clean, to be honest. And then coming in front of us, again, simplicity is key. To the left, you've got your rev counter. In the middle, you've got your speedo, and I love a central speedo. It's always my personal preference. And to the right-hand side of that, you've got your fuel gauge and you've got your temperature gauge. And that is pretty much all you get, apart from a few warning lights. But thankfully, there's nothing wrong with this, so we haven't seen anything apart from the handbrake warning light. Now, over to your right-hand side, you've got your lights. And then you've got this little turny dial thing here, and that's just to adjust those headlights for the load, because of course it is a very practical car. Things like the 60-40 split on the back seats, great invention, means that it can be used for a lot. You can see when you're in this why it was such a best-selling car, because it really does offer everything that you need from a medium-sized family car. As well as that, you've got your fog lights. And then on the stalks, it's just as you would expect. So on your left-hand side, you've got indicator there. And on the right-hand side, you have got your wipers. So I think the only thing really to show you is that horn. Hope it works. Hold on. Hey! And I think something else we should mention is actually for this year, so I think it was 1993 they updated it, you go to a full-size airbag on the driver's side. Passenger side, well, they're the passenger, they're not the most important person, are they? So you've got that there, which again, it was really interesting because for 1993, Vauxhall do start moving things along. And when we go out for a drive, I'll tell you a little bit about the security side of that as well. Up here, you've got your sunroof, and I think one of the things I like about this particular car is, again, it's literally just been dragged out of somebody's garage ready for this video, but it's remarkable because the headlining isn't saggy, this isn't leaking, and there's none of that like pesky mould and stuff that you see around here when seals start to go. And to say that it wasn't the most expensive car, and to say that when they sold it, they said the interior is sturdy and it will last, I don't think they were telling any fibs. It is, you know, you look at the age of the vehicle, it's from what, 1993, and it still looks in remarkably fine fettle. You see other stuff of this era from, and I hate to criticise them, Austin Rover, and by 50, 60k, the seat starts sagging, it starts looking tired. This is a well put together car. It isn't the most exciting, it isn't the most frivolous, but I'll tell you what, it represents good value for money, and as you'll see when we go for a drive in a minute, it's great for a drive as well. So what we'll do is we'll get her started up and you can hear what she sounds like from the inside, and then I'll flip the camera to the back and you can hear what she sounds like from the back as well. So without further delay, I'm in neutral. Let's go. I'll give a little rev as well so you can hear how it sounds. Wonderful. Do you know what? This is what happens when you pull a car out of a garage and it hasn't been driven in ages. Oh, I'll tell you what, let's put the battery pack on it and then we'll get it started back up for you. If this wasn't one of my friend's cars, I definitely wouldn't show you this bit. So let's get it started up. I think we're going to forgive this car for her little misdemeanor because she's only just been rescued. She's very much still a work in progress, and it's one of the first days that she's been with Kev. So let's get her started up. It's so quiet. Can you even hear it? Right, I'm going to go and shoot from the back and let you listen to what she sounds like from the back too. Now let's head off on our Cavalier adventure, and what I'm going to do is get it up through the gearbox. And would you believe it, we are up into 5th gear at 50 miles per hour. Now, one of the things that I think is really nice about this car is A, the steering is super light and the handling is so spot on. And number 2, it's incredibly quiet inside. Now, you might say to me, well, Steph, a lot of the stuff that you test is a lot older. You know, your experiences with stuff like Morris Minors, the Triumph 1300, of course this is going to feel modern to you. But bear in mind that I'm dailying that Proton at the moment, and it's probably a really interesting comparison because the Proton's from 1994, this is from 1993, and yes, the Proton was a bit of a rebadged Mitsubishi, I know all of that, but it's quite interesting to take out something that was for sale at the same time and see how they hold up against each other, even if they sat in different price brackets. Now, what I don't like about this car is, and I love the handling, I love how quiet it is inside, because of course you've got that coefficient drag of what, I think it's 0.29, which I think they'd carried over from the earlier Cavaliers. And with that you get things like they promise a better economy, you know, better speed, quieter inside. But with all of that, and all that's great, and it's lovely, you know, the steering is just smashing, it's really light to drive. You could put a new driver in this and you wouldn't have a problem. It's that gearbox, it feels quite stiff, and I'm so used to that Proton box now that I can just change it with one finger, that getting into this, it almost just feels a bit like a chore changing gear. Now, when we talk about classics, people get really misty-eyed about stuff. They're like, oh God, you know, it's only an MGB or a Morris Minor. And there seems to be a lot of gatekeeping around what a classic is. And I want us to just take a minute to think about what that really means. Because at the start of the video, I said, I hope that by the end of this video, you can see a good argument for why this should be a future classic or classed as a classic car. Now, first of all, you've got a lot of younger people in the scene nowadays, people under the age of 25, and they'll quite rightly say, well, to us, a Morris Minor or an MGB, it's not really a car that we remember. Whereas stuff like this, dads had them, especially, you know, maybe as company cars. And so for them, this is the car of their childhood, or this is the car that maybe granddad drove, or it's a car that they remember being parked on their street with a friendly neighbour. It has the same misty-eyed connotations for them as something like a Morris Minor or an MGB does for someone who's a bit older. And when you think about magazines like Practical Classics, they were covering MGBs that were from the 70s in the 80s. So a car like this that's over 20 years old, it kind of does fall into that bracket now. And as well as that, it was one of the best-selling cars. And I think the Cavalier outsold the Ford Sierra at one point. I think it was 1990. But the point is, it was a best-selling car. It's a car that many younger people have a good memory of, maybe being dropped to school, going on days out, favourite person in their family. And for some people it might have been a first car, you know, somebody's dad said, oh well, we're getting the new car, you can have this handed down. And those are all the benchmarks for older people of what a classic means to them with some of the older stuff. So the world of classics is changing, and I think with that, cars like this and things like the Metro, things like Corsa Bs, they do deserve some sort of classic badging of some sort. And so for me, that's why I saw this car and I said, right, well, we've got to get it on the channel, because for a young person, this is what driving a classic means to them. It doesn't mean something that is running on points and condenser and, you know, electronic ignition upgrade and an A-series engine. It's stuff like this. So it's been quite interesting to feature. And as well as that, the world of new classics like this represents something different, because with your older stuff you have to think, oh God, I don't want to take it out in the rain and I'm worried about it being stolen. But when Vauxhall re-examined the market in 1993 for these. They said, well, I think it was 28% of crime was related to automotive. It was cars being stolen. So they said, well, we're going to re-examine how easy it is to steal one of our cars. And they did things like all the etching on the window and various other things. So I guess for me as well, something nice about this era of classic cars, and even I think this is probably a bit too modern to be a classic, is that they are just a little bit more usable than some of your stuff like your Triumphs and your older stuff. They are very usable. They're usable. They're a low entry price point, so it means that young people can get into them, which is refreshing. And you can still go to all your car shows in them, because many car shows now have changed the badging from pre-1980 or pre-1990 to pre-2000. So, it's that nice thing that when you're buying into this, you're not just buying into the car or the driving experience, which, by the way, is just as good as any cheap runaround from the early 2000s. You also buy into the social life as well. So with that, I guess I bring the video to a close. It was nice to feature it, and I think it's great that it's getting a second life. It's probably not the 90s car for me. I'm very, very attached to the Proton now, and I think if I had to get another 90s car, I'd probably just be really unimaginative and get another Proton, because I'm really enjoying that. But if you're watching this at home and you're a young person on a limited budget and you're thinking, I want a usable, modern, classic, retro-y type car, this is probably a great shout. You can fit all your friends in it. You've got that 60-40 split on the back seat that you can fold down, so you can get all your bits in for a holiday, you can get all your stuff in. It's a usable, enjoyable, uneventful drive that you can have lots of fun with your friends. And so with that, I say goodbye to you today, and until next time, take care and drive safely.